Hey losers, I'm Coral. Welcome to my channel. If you're joining me for the first time, I like to read things that are strange and unusual. So if you're into that, welcome to the party. Today, I'm here with my half-month wrap-up. I started doing these halfway through the month and at the end of the month because I used to be reading a lot of things. These days, not quite as many things, but I have read, to get to my stats, 6 books, which includes a book that I read about 200 pages of and decided to set down. 2 of these were off of my TBR, so that means I owned the book previous to this year. I read 1,863 pages, which is about 124 pages per day. The oldest book I read this month came out in 1978, and the most recent was a 2025 release. I read 5 horror books and 1 book that was one of the weirdest, for the most part, lit fiction books I've ever read, but the end is so bonkers. I'm also doing another round of the Read What You Own challenge, which is a challenge where you read books that you own before you buy new ones. First half of the month, I've read 2 books that count towards that, which leaves me with 68 books left to read, since my goal is to read 100 books. Not getting there quite as quickly as I'd like, but I'm gonna fucking do it. I did it before, and I know I can do it again. The problem is, part of the problem is that I have like a bunch of holds at the library on Libby for audiobooks, because I'm really trying hard to catch up to some of the 2025 horror books that I want to read. And a whole bunch of books came out recently, or my library got a whole bunch of books. And they're books that I like had notifications for. Like I woke up one morning and I had 14 of them. And I was like, what? That's insane. Some of them were because the library bought an audio copy and ebook copy. So actually 3 of the books I want to talk to you about today are audiobooks I listened to through my library that were 2025 releases, and that's actually why I read 6 books this month, was because 3 of them were audio. And it's really nice, you know, having that option, and boy, am I glad for it. One of my favorite things to do is to play a video game and listen to an audiobook. If it's not a video game where there's like a lot of dialogue, or if I can just skip through the dialogue, or I don't find it necessary to listen to what's going on in the video game. So I have been listening to some audiobooks, and let me tell you about them. The first one is Senseless by Ronald Malfi. This came out this year, and this is a lot like some of the almost crime thrillers with like a little bit of horror sprinkled in that he has been writing in the past few years. It kind of reminds me of his book Come With Me. I didn't like it quite as much as Come With Me, but I thought it was pretty good. This has like a couple different lines that we're following through the book with different characters, and you know that at some point they have to converge, right? Because otherwise, why are we following these people around? But there was one point of view that like I really didn't like for the majority of the book, and when it got to like, you know, how that person mixed into everything else, it was like, why, I guess. Like it just, in the end, didn't feel necessary at all. And it didn't help that I didn't find them a compelling character. This is about a crime that was committed, a murder. This woman's body's found, and it's very similar to an unsolved case that this detective has already like worked on. And then you just have like a couple different points of view, and you're like, how does this tie to this, and how does this tie to this? And like I said, it was pretty good. I would have liked it more if, and I just like reading it, I'm like, Malfi really likes this character. Like he's super into this character, I think. And then that character ended up being, to me, very pointless to the story. But I don't know. I mean, read it for yourself. I definitely didn't hate it. I thought it was very entertaining. It's just that like when this character came up, I was like, this person again. I also listened to another audiobook I didn't love, which was Smile for the Cameras by Miranda Smith. And this was on my most anticipated, I think at the beginning of the year, my most anticipated video that I put together. The cover is pretty cool. It involves a movie, which I find interesting. I always like that. Basically, it's like the final girl from this movie forever ago has been out of the showbiz for a while, and now she's like kind of looking into getting back again, and her agent's like, you know, what would really help is if you become involved in this documentary that they're trying to do about the movie that you did 20, 30 years ago. And she's reluctant to do it, but she does it. Her name's Ella, I think. The original movie was a like college age person slasher, and you know that on the set something happened to someone, but you're not really sure who or what. It's a little bit like I Know What You Did Last Summer, right? Like these people are coming together again and they know that they did something wrong and they're trying to hide it from everybody. But are they going to be able to when there's a documentarian kind of combing through things? I just felt like it really brought absolutely nothing new to the table. And I feel like when things start to get revealed, it just felt kind of like a cheap reveal. Like, I don't really know how to explain it without going into spoilers, but it was like, I don't know. It was like you couldn't have been, I'm sorry, author, you wrote a book and that's really great, but you couldn't have been more creative than that. Not that I could have either, or anything like that, but I mean, looking at it critically and, or maybe not critically, but speaking on why I didn't like it, it just felt kind of gimmicky, and it was just kind of, it could have been any other book about people coming back together after a certain number of years and they have a secret together, you know? So I didn't really like that one at all. Then the third audiobook I listened to this month so far is Black Flame by Gretchen Felker-Martin. This is the third book I've read of hers, and again, I liked it. This is a novella. It's under 200 like just under 200 pages. So it was a really quick listen, and I thought that the narrator did like a good job at this. This is about a young woman named Ellen, who is, I was a little bit fuzzy on exactly when this took place. I don't know if they told us, but they alluded to things that happened to the main character in like the 70s when she was a child. So I'm guessing that possibly this took place sometime in the 90s. But which I like, right? Because it's kind of like a period piece now. And she works in like film restoration. So they take like long lost films that have been damaged from time and other things, and they try to restore them. So that's what she does. The place that she works for gets commissioned to work on this like legendary thing, like this thing that exists but doesn't because no one's ever seen it kind of a thing, but like there's rumors of it kind of a thing. And it's like this kind of like weird witchy dirty movie, and Ellen herself is like closeted, but not just closeted, but like in denial closeted. And at some point she was at one point she was trying to live her life as her authentic gay self, queer self, and her parents threatened to disown her. So like that's caused a lot of problems with her and her family, with her and herself. And so I felt like Ellen was very much an interesting character. I read this a lot because I wanted to see what was going to happen with Ellen. So she's trying to, you know, live up to her parents' expectations and deeply hating it. And her only reprieve is like working on films and seeing movies and things like that. So she's working on restoring this like legendary film, and strange things start to happen. And she's finding it harder and harder to like keep her shit together. So yeah, I've really enjoyed this. If you don't like Gretchen Felker-Martin, I guess I really don't give a shit. Now on to the physical books that I finished so far. The first one here is The Starving Saints by Starling, and this is the book that I've put down. I read about 200 pages in it, and I just got to the point where I was like, I'm not really sure what's happening here, but like not in a fun way. And it was really hard for me to make this decision. And not just because I had already read, you know, so much of the book. It was that there are things that I like that are happening in this, but the fact that I was feeling reluctant to pick it up, I think is just a big sign that I need to put it down. And I might keep it. I might save it for a more clear-headed day, I guess. But I don't know what was happening in this. Basically, you're following a couple different characters who are in this castle that's under siege, and one day they have these like saviors that come in, and they say that they're saints. And one, it's weird that they can even get past like this army around the castle. So that's very mysterious. And two, people start acting differently, doing things they wouldn't normally once these saints arrive. They've got all this bountiful food, and a lot of people are like, yes, this is exactly what we need. They're so grateful. But there are a couple characters in this book who suspect that these saints aren't exactly who they say they are. And like, doesn't that sound so good? But I don't know what's happening here. I don't even know. I was so confused. And at one point, I thought one character had been another person going by a different name. And I was like so confused. Like, I don't know. This book it's just, I can't do it right now. But I'm hoping that maybe in the future I can. Depending on how long this sits again on my bookshelf. I mean, this one hasn't sat for too long, but some of her other books are still there. Then we have Falling Angel by William Hjortsberg. This came out in 1978. And I'm going to do a separate review of this since at one point I did start reviewing paperbacks from Hell books separately in like a little tiny series that I was doing. And then sometimes I forget to do that. So I'm not going to forget this time. I'm not huge on detective stories. I thought that this had a great ending, but there were times in the middle where I was like, This is about Harry Angel. He's a PI, and he is hired by a lawyer who is representing another guy. And they want him to track down a man who should be in some sort of like medical institution, but somehow he's not there, and somehow also he didn't die. So where the fuck is he? He shouldn't be up walking around. He just wasn't in that sort of condition. So what happened? You'll have to read it and find out for yourself. Okay, and the last book I'm going to tell you about today is very divisive. It's very divisive, and I know exactly why. This came out in 2021. It's called A Touch of Jen, and it's by Beth Morgan. This is one of those books where it was like I cornered Zach to like have to tell him about everything. And I'm like, you know that weird book I'm reading? Blah, 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 blah. It just happened. And he's like, okay, okay. Honestly, I know that sometimes I say this about books, but this might be the weirdest fucking thing I've ever read in my life. It was so weird. This is about Remy and Alicia, and they are a couple. They're dating, and one of their favorite pastimes is to like cyber stalk this old co-worker of Remy's named Jen, who he very clearly has a crush on. And Alicia like also maybe even has a crush on, even though she's never met her. It's just like they obsess about Jen. Sometimes Alicia pretends to be Jen. It's like one of the most strange relationship dynamics I've ever read about in a book. And I don't even know exactly what to tell you about this, except for that things get stranger and stranger, and then something happens that I would have never expected, and the story goes on, and then something even more strange and unexpected happens. I just spit because like I'm frothing about how weird this book is. It's just, I can't even tell you about it. I can't tell you about it, and it makes me upset because it's so fucking strange. It's so strange. I can't stop thinking about it. It's one of those books too. I think what helped me devour this is that it just almost doesn't have any natural breaks. So, and I mean that in a good way, at least for me. I'd be reading it and I'd be like, okay, I'll stop at the next chapter. And then like, I realized that it was like to the next chapter or whatever. And I was still reading it and I was like halfway into the chapter and I'd be like, oh shit. I'm supposed to put this down. I need to go to sleep, you know? So yeah, I just, it's full of very miserable people. Remy's miserable. Alicia is kind of weird and she's probably maybe one of the less miserable people, but she has some issues. Jen isn't all that they talk her up to be. There's people they meet along the way. The only person who's actually really a good, nice person in this is their roommate, Jake. And that's not something I expected when they kind of introduced him into the story. I was like, oh, their roommate, they're not gonna like him. But he's actually the only like nice and genuine person in this story. Many people don't like this. I loved it. This was my favorite book I've read so far this month. So I'll leave you with that. Don't sue me in a court of law if you read A Touch of Jen and you don't like it. All right, so that's what I've read so far this month. I'd love to know if you've read any of these, what you thought about them, what you've been up to so far this month. I hope August is treating you well. It's been a hectic couple of weeks as I prepare for school, and I prepared my sweet little baby for junior high, her first year of junior high, and there's a lot of like big firsts in her life. And she has been like so brave and responsible about it, and I'm super proud of her. So, and I think we're over like that first hump where it's like, this is the third day of school. I think we've got our shit down. But now, the week after next, I start school and oh boy, it's just gonna be something else. I can tell already. So, that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you later. Goodbye.